Hey guys, welcome back to Blue Dog Ventures. Today we're going through our 6-week-old Coturnix quail and showing you exactly how to feather sex and vent sex your birds. This is the prime window, 6 to 8 weeks old, where quail are at their ideal butcher weight. So this is the time to go through your flock, separate out your breeders, and make decisions about the rest. We're going to walk you through our entire process. How to tell males from females, how we choose our breeder sets, why it's important to pull extra males before they start aggressively mating, and what our long-term plan is for keeping quail as an ongoing source of meat and eggs for our family. Timing is important on quail, especially if you're butchering and you're using them for meat purposes. 6 to 8 weeks is your prime time to go through. You can butcher as early as 6 weeks if they've already reached their full weight. And this is also the best time. You want to do it within this window to keep your feed to meat ratio down. 6 weeks is when you really should be looking at them hard. See if they're at that full weight. Anything after 8 weeks, the meat starts getting fattier and the meat quality just starts to decline a little bit. That's not to say that you can't butcher and eat older birds. You can most definitely do that. The prime time is between 6 to 8 weeks. And if you are keeping your quail, if you want to keep them on an ongoing cycle, you're going to need to hold back some breeders, whether that be for egg production or meat production or both. So again, 6 weeks is the perfect time, a perfect opportunity to go through your birds. As you can hear them back here in the back, the males have already started crowing. They're coming into that sexual maturity, and you can go ahead and sex them, and that's one of the main topics we're going to cover in this video. So I will show you guys now. We'll start with the feather sexing. I'll show you how to look for different patterns on the feathers. Now, it is important to know that this doesn't work on all Coturnix, simply because they vary widely in their feather pattern, just depending on the color and the type of Coturnix that you have. I do have some that are lighter colored and some that are white. So this is the perfect instance where you can't solely rely on the feather pattern to sex, especially with your white birds. So then I will show you how to vent sex. So let's jump in and I'll show you. Okay, as you can see, their chest, the feather patterns are drastically different. You have the spotted and speckled chest, and then you have the rust-colored, more solid chest feather pattern here. This is going to be your male. The speckles are going to be your female. Again, this is only on your colored and feather patterned quail. Your white ones or your solid color, you're going to have to rely on vent sexing. But again, speckles on the chest is female. Solid, not very many speckles, more rust-colored or solid colored chest is going to be your male. Okay, now for your vent sexing, okay? We got him. I'll change the camera angle a little bit, maybe that'll help. Okay, again. All right, you can see that foam. See there? If you get foam, that's your male. Again, the vent sexing is really unnecessary if you have the feather patterns to go by. But when not, check your vent and just kind of spread that open and massage the top side and see if you get the foam. If so, that is your male. The older your males get, again, these are a fresh 6 weeks old today at the time of this video. So they're just entering into that sexual maturity. And so that foam increases the older they get and the more mature that they get. So in the beginning, and especially at 6 weeks, you may not get that foam. So if you're dealing with birds that you can't feather sex, be sure to give it ample time. You may even want to wait to 8 weeks before making a definite decision on whether it's male or female. But this is a sign, if you do start to see that foam, this is a sign that they are getting into that sexual maturity and they are ready to breed. Okay, so now that we've covered the feather pattern sexing and the vent sexing. Now what you need to do is you need to go through and evaluate your flock and see what your ratio is. It's very important when they're coming into that sexual maturity age. Again, can happen anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. Usually when your males start really crowing a lot, you want to go ahead, and if you're going to extend the period from that point on before butcher, you want to go ahead and start pulling some of those males out and separating them, because they will overbreed your hens and can cause injury. They'll also make your hens look real rough. They'll have bald heads, and like I say, it just makes for a stressful period all the way around for the quail in general, the males and the females. So you want to be sure to go ahead and pull your excess of males out of that pen and separate them into another pen. It's also important at this time to not introduce new adult birds. Once they come into that sexual maturity, they are very territorial and they will fight, and it's just not a good scenario. So you want to raise your sets, you want to raise in sets, and you want to kind of keep those birds that hatch together with the exception of separating out your males. But at this point, we're going to make a decision. If most of these are to their mature weight, we'll probably hold on to them for another week. But we're going to go through and we're going to go ahead and pick our breeders out today. We're looking for the strongest, largest, most healthy birds. You want to hold those out and use those for your breeders so that they can pass along those good genetics to the next generation. Any that are smaller or have any deformities, weak legs, if they have something wrong with one of their toes, a curled toe or a splayed toe, you don't want to use those as your ongoing breeders. You probably want to go ahead and cull those. So today, me and TJ, we're going to go through this pen and we're going to pick out what we believe would be the biggest and healthiest birds that we want to keep producing our genetics and provide us with ongoing eggs. When you're holding out your breeders, a good rule of thumb is you want one roux or one rooster, one male quail per 4 to 5 hens or female quail. You're going to have to do the math and figure out how many you need to keep for your breeder set to accommodate the needs that you're going to be using them for. If you're just going to be consuming eggs and have them for eggs to eat, then you just need to figure out how many times a week your family actually eats egg. A good rule of thumb, usually it's around 4 to 5 quail eggs equals 1 chicken egg, give or take, depending on, like I say, what variety of quail that you have and how big the eggs are. I would say anywhere from 3 to 5 quail eggs per chicken egg. And just figure out how many eggs that you're going to need per week to feed your family. Now, on the other side of the fence, if you're using the quail for meat production and you're just going to incubate the eggs, again, you're going to have to do your math and you're going to have to figure out what size sets you're wanting to hatch at one time. We started out with 120 eggs per incubation. We've done 2 so far, and ironically we ended up with 32 said birds by the time we moved them to the outside brooder here, and in the second batch we had 31. So hatch rate wasn't too good. But I got these eggs from a guy, and I'm not sure how old the eggs were on some of them. I'm not saying that was the situation. I'm anxious to hatch our own eggs to see if we get a better hatch rate, or to see if I need to adjust something on my end of the incubation process. You're just going to have to figure out your operation and how you want to do it. For us, we're thinking that around between 30 and 40 birds per set of raising them, hatching them, and raising them to butcher is a good number for our accommodations, our hutch size, and the system that we have. Again, you're going to have to evaluate your own setup and figure out what works for you, and it's going to kind of be just you're gonna have to test out and see what works for you. That's what we're in the process of doing. But like I say, right now we're thinking between 30 to 40 birds, 50 tops in one set is about all we want to do for our accommodations and our setup.
We may try to expand later, but right now it's kind of a learning process. You learn as we learn, but it's kind of a learning process for us. And we actually get into it a lot. And if it does work out, as a matter of fact, I'm in the process right now of making a little more space. So
he's over there in construction mode on another hutch or brooder box. We've yet to determine which way we want to go with it. This was some salvage material that we ended up with. Luckily, that is perfect for what we're thinking in our heads, but we may make a separate video on that for you guys. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to size up our flock. This is our first hatch. We have our second hatch here. I'm thinking they're hitting on about 3 weeks old. I have to check my calendar on these.
I think so too.
But today's focus is our adult 6-week-old birds. We're going to go through. We're looking for our healthiest, biggest, strongest looking birds that we want to keep out for our breeder sets, both the male and the female. And to be honest with you, what we're going to do is we have a place specified for our breeder set. We're thinking 20 birds, including our males and our females, for the space that we have. And we're thinking that will give us ample eggs for the operation that we're doing right this minute. Again, we may look to expand later, but this is what we're kind of testing out, experimenting with right now. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick them out. We're going to move them over, see how we feel about that number in this space. So let's get busy looking through our flock. Another way that you can always tell your males are the ones that's crowing. Your hens are not going to crow. So what we're going to do, we're going to size up and go ahead, if any stand out to us from just looking at them in the hutch here, stand out as bigger than the rest of them, we're definitely going to keep those. Again, we're probably going to keep around 4 males, so we're going to go ahead and pick those out first.
That one just crowed. He's good size. And he's pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
See one, he's coming to you.
All right, this is a pretty good looking male. Feisty. We're gonna go ahead and put him out in the section we've got specified for the breeders over here. That's a pretty female right there. Let's see. Good looking, healthy female. Again, you can see the specks on her chest. All right, so that's we need to do. I guess we need to stick with the males first. That's a female. All right, so that should be 4 males. All right, guys, so we got everything separated out. We picked what we feel like will be the best birds to keep for our breeder set. We've got them separated, and I'll show you TJ come up with a genius idea on our accommodations here. I'll show you that. So this is one long hutch all the way across, and we did have all of this first batch all in together. And so after we pulled out our breeders and separated those out, TJ came up with the idea to divide this hutch, and he actually hinged it so that we can open this up and latch it to the top of the pen if we ever need this to be, completely open for whatever reason, or if we change our setup. So I thought that was a pretty clever idea that he came up with. But as of right now, we have all our breeders over here to this side. We have their water, their feed. And I have found that these tray type feeders work best for the, them not wasting as much feed. I always keep a tray. You can use, like over here, I have an old cookie sheet. These are trays that came out of the bottom of like a puppy crate. But I keep those up under my tray feeders, and I've really had good luck with this as far as less waste. I have them a little box in here with fresh dirt so they can dust. And this being our breeder side, it's actually blocked off. It has an exterior covering around part of the enclosure. That way they have protection from wind or severely cold wind blowing in on them. And they have little structures to lay their eggs once that process starts, hopefully within the next week or so. And so we've got them all set up and all cozy. And we're going to see how this plays out and how it works out. And we can make adjustments as needed. But that's our setup for now. These are the ones that are going to freezer camp. We're probably going to give them another week, possibly all the way to 8 weeks. Again, we're at 6-week mark now. But we're going to give them at least another week, see what they look like at 7 weeks. And at the most, 8 weeks old. They will, be butchered and processed and put in the freezer for added protein for our family. But that pretty much concludes what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Just at the 6-week mark, what you should be looking at, what you should be preparing for. Go ahead and sex your birds. Go ahead and figure out the accommodations. And if you're going to hold a breeder set out, go ahead and make accommodations for those. And pull out any excess males so that you won't have the overbreeding of the hens and your females. And just make it as stress-free as possible for the birds. But we appreciate y'all watching. Hope you learned something in this video. And if you are looking at possibly getting into quail, subscribe and follow us along on this journey. We're learning as we go also. But so far, I can go ahead and tell you hands down, quail are a lot more efficient than chickens. These again are 6 weeks old, and we have taken them from hatch to 6 weeks on less than 2 bags of feed. And the bags of feed, depending on your area and where you're at, but my feed here ranges around, usually around $18 for a bag, a 50-pound bag of game starter and grower. So if you do your math, you're looking at for less than 40 bucks, because I still have probably over half of that second bag left. That will possibly get me all the way to the end of 7 weeks, possibly into the 8th week if we decide to go that long on the butcher. But just to give you an idea, this was 32 birds again. And those 2 bags of feed, I feel confident are going to take us all the way to butcher. So roughly around 40 bucks to raise 32 quail from hatch to butcher. So you guys can do the math. That's just a touch over $1 a piece. If you go to the grocery store or to a meat market to buy your quail, you know how expensive they can be. So I highly recommend it, as they don't take up a lot of space. They're very docile, which I was surprised by. I was thinking, that they were going to be real flighty and just kind of skittish, but overall they are really docile. You going in and out of the pen every day. They don't really scatter, or they're not tremendously scared of you, which really surprised me, because I was expecting the exact opposite. I would go so far as to say that they're a little more docile than my chickens. I am really liking this journey with the quail. I think this is something we're going to continue to do long term. You just gotta start. And you just gotta, you learn as you go. And as far as your accommodations and your setup and your operation, you'll just tweak it along the way to suit your needs. And that's what we've been doing. And like I say, I think it's gonna be a long-term source of protein for our family. And that is our plan, is to just keep an endless cycle going. Just keep a breeder set, collect the eggs, incubate, and restart the process over and over. But again, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've learned something. And if you're looking to get into quail, be sure and hit that subscribe button and follow along on this journey with us. Hopefully we'll have a lot of helpful tips along the way as we learn. You can learn also. As we mentioned earlier in the video, we have a piece of salvage material that is going to be a perfect setup for either another brooder box or possibly another hutch. TJ's doing some engineering on that, but that's going to be in an upcoming video. So if you guys want to check that out, it'll be right up here in the corner if we've already made the video. If not, hang tight and stay tuned. And also, we will be sharing with you guys the whole butcher process. And if that video's already out, it'll be right here. Thanks, guys, for watching.